And for more on this meeting in Busan between the US and Chinese presidents, I can welcome Peter Gries, Professor of Chinese Politics, Lee Kai-hung Chair and Founding Director of the Manchester China Institute at the University of Manchester. Good morning, Peter, and thank you for joining us. Xi Jinping and Donald Trump met today for the first time in 6 years. Donald Trump hailed it as a great success, notably with this one-year deal on rare earth minerals reached. But which of the two countries might feel that they got the better deal here?
I think both Trump and Xi will want to claim victory, but there were no winners today in South Korea. We stepped back from further deteriorating bilateral relations, but both sides overplayed their hands for different reasons. But yeah, there are definitely no winners from what happened in South Korea.
Now, Donald Trump has been heavily criticised in the United States for allegedly harming the US's interests by imposing these tariffs, not just on China, but elsewhere in the world, including US allies. But how has Beijing taken advantage of this situation?
Yeah, it has failed to. I think Xi overplayed his hand when instead of directing any limits on rare earth exports solely to the US, it extended them globally. So it heightened perceptions of a China threat all around the world. Yeah, so unfortunately, Xi has not learned the proper lessons from Trump's bullying. Trump's tariffs extended even to American allies, such as in Europe and Canada. This could have been a very easy thing that Xi could have learned, which is, don't bully the world because there will be price to pay. But instead, both leaders are doing the same thing, and both leaders are undermining the national interest of their countries.
Now, one of Donald Trump's aims in the trade wars is to bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States, and many have questioned the feasibility of that. But there are others who agree with him that trade imbalances between China and particularly the West should be redressed. Is Beijing taking the prospect of such a redressment happening seriously?
Yes, Beijing, like Trump, they are not really supporters of the idea of a free market economy. Both leaders are more mercantilist in the way they think about how economies work. Trump built his career in the Manhattan real estate market, in which a lot of activities, a lot of economic interactions were zero sum. And so he doesn't really believe in the free market and the idea that the pie can expand and that everyone can benefit from trade. Xi Jinping, for different reasons, having to do with how the Chinese Communist Party writes its history of interactions with the outside world, also has a kind of siege mentality and believes that international economics and trade are zero sum. And so he is constantly looking to make China more and more self-sufficient. So both rulers are taking our two countries in a direction of autarky, which is not beneficial to either country or the global economy.
Now, Chinese governments are well known for preferring predictability in world affairs, something that was disrupted with the coming to office of Donald Trump in 2016. But Trump, in his second term, is being probably a little bit less of an unpredictable figure. Is this something that you think China has taken on board, or, as you mentioned earlier, are they still making the mistakes that they might have made in the first Trump administration?
I personally think that international politics remains highly unpredictable, and Trump very much at the center of that because of his narcissistic personality. His policy preferences change from moment to moment depending on who his audience is and how he thinks that will resonate with other audiences that he cares about. So Trump's policymaking remains extremely volatile, and that's not good for global politics. I think many in Beijing originally thought that Trump, the first time he was elected, would be good for China because he doesn't seem to have principles on things like human rights that democratic administrations used to focus on in their relations with China. But I think China learned that it is not necessarily a benefit to China to have this self-styled master negotiator in charge. There may still be ideas in Beijing that somehow they can negotiate reunification with Taiwan from Trump, but I think that's also a pipe dream.
Now, China will be happy that Donald Trump did not bring up Taiwan in that meeting, or at least according to Trump himself. But Beijing is surely not under any illusions that this signifies any major shift in the US position on Taiwan. Is there a sense that the Trump administration is operating a two-speed policy with regard to China? One on trade that is particular to Trump himself, with one of his hobby horses being tariffs, and another on security that is more business as usual for Washington?
Trump has overall, outside of the economic realm, he has perhaps been a little more successful in certain foreign policy areas. But his unpredictability is not good for peace in the Taiwan Strait. Dual deterrence, which the policy that the United States has pursued for decades and has contributed to peace in the Taiwan Strait, is now very fragile. It's the idea that you prevent Taiwan from declaring independence, but you also warn Beijing that, should they seek to militarily force reunification, that United States would interfere and support Taiwan. This dual deterrence, deterring both Taipei and Beijing, has worked for many decades. It's becoming more and more difficult given changes in Beijing, where Xi Jinping has basically staked his legitimacy and his authority as the leader of the Chinese Communist Party on this idea of a China dream, which involves reunifying Taiwan with the mainland. So there is more and more pressure on the leadership that is arguably self-imposed to come to a resolution of the Taiwan issue. And I don't think the Trump administration is prepared to deal with that change in Beijing. And so we continue to have a very volatile and increasingly volatile situation across the Taiwan Strait.